in our presentation. So the very quick disclaimer, what I wanted to say is we're not Microsoft. This is not an official training, and there are no official trainings right now except for getlicensingrated.com, which I keep promoting. It's a free resource. And everything you learn today, what I encourage you to do is go to getlicensingrated.com and download PDFs from there. Try to do tests there, because firstly, that's the only remaining official Microsoft certification, which is free. And secondly, some of the things that we'll be talking about today, you may not completely grasp from how we explain it. Have a second opinion, have a second source, compare, and learn something. So try that. And obviously, we completely waive any responsibility for any consequences of if you learn something from us. I always say, I even had a post on LinkedIn recently. I always say, don't trust anyone. Don't trust anyone's opinion. Don't trust what you hear, what you even read on the Microsoft website, unless there's product terms. Go to the product terms and check everything there. Somebody told you something that you're questioning, that you think isn't right. Go to the product terms. Don't ask your friends. Go to the product terms website and see that. I'll get to that. That is basically the idea of the next slide. So this training is about practical knowledge. These are our battle scars, as we already said, and always check everything on the Microsoft Product Terms website. How you find it? Go to Google, go to Bing, type Microsoft Product Terms, and you'll get to this website. So always, I even encourage you, if you can, if you're watching this from a computer, open it in the second window, so you can then verify everything I'm saying. Or just if you're curious, check it there. All right. So quick previous sessions recap. Why I'm doing this is just to remind you and to give ideas and get a bit of a context to those who haven't been to our previous session. So there are a few ways to acquire licenses. Volume licensing agreements probably accounts for 90% of all the purchases to date, including historic purchases. This is changing, but it's still probably be a bit 90%. This is what we're talking about today. And there are other ways to acquire which we're not talking about today. So the licenses you get with computers, we're gonna talk about them in the desktop session in a few weeks from now. Licenses that you get with ISV, again, not in scope, SPLA, not in scope. So we're only going to be talking about volume agreements today. That is the topic of today. Another reminder, so I'll be very often saying SA or software assurance. So for those of you who don't know yet, software assurance, it's a subscription, it's an OPEX, cost, which provides you additional rights. It inflates the rights that you get with the license, but that's always a subscription. So this is Microsoft's name for maintenance, sort of. So that is what it is, software assurance. If you want to know more about software assurance, after this live, go and watch the first part, because there's a whole section about software assurance. And I have a couple of dedicated videos on this channel, on SAMexpert TV, that talk about software assurance. A bit of license, then again, little reminder about license lifetime. So licenses, there are perpetual licenses, CapEx cost, capital expenditure. You pay for them, when you fully pay for them, if there's a payment spread, when you fully paid for them, they're used forever, they never expire. Some of the licenses and some of the agreements, that's the only way to buy licenses. Enterprise agreement is a good example. You can only buy a license with software assurance. You can't buy it without software assurance. It's perpetual license plus subscription, which is yours forever, plus a subscription that ends at some certain point, which you can renew. And then if you don't renew it on time, gaps are not allowed. So it's just a reminder. Again, watch the first session. There's much more about software assurance. I just want you to understand that is something that gives you additional rights, and that is compulsory, mandatory in some of the Microsoft agreements. You can't buy a license without that additional cost of maintenance on it. Subscriptions are subscriptions. Subscriptions expire, you resubscribe. There are no strings attached, so it's simple as that. So there are also subscription licenses in addition to perpetual. So that's all about licensing for today. there's also a bit of a contractual agreement language that I'd like to learn today and to know upfront before we move on to the next sessions, because these terms somehow relate to the majority of Microsoft agreements. So the first one is affiliate. When you sign a Microsoft volume agreement, you can not only sign it for your one legal entity, you can also bring in other affiliated entities. So Microsoft see affiliated entities as something that is either owned, one company owns another company by 50% or more of voting securities. So it's not just shares, it's voting shares, control shares, or somehow else may execute, may have power to directly manage the other organization. Indirect affiliation is also possible when you have one company, then another company owns this one, and then it owns another one. They're also affiliated, as long as these, what's the word I'm looking for? Conditions are met. So that is the affiliate. If there's nothing else, if there's a 20% ownership, it's not affiliation from the Microsoft's point of view. All of those affiliates could be brought in the agreement, but you must be careful. We'll get to that. We must be careful with how you manage that. So wait for it. We get it there. Qualified device. So qualified device is a term that you will also hear quite often, because qualified device in some agreements, the number of qualified devices tells you the minimum number of licenses you have to have on the agreement to actually have the agreement. Usually it's a device that is capable of running Windows either locally or be able to connect to a remote Windows session. It could be an iPad. If you use an iPad to connect to your enterprise service or to remote Windows sessions, that is also a qualified device. So basically almost every client device. The exceptions are unmanaged devices that are not managed by the organization, third-party devices. Some bring your own devices, as long as they're not managed by some software in the organization. They're not managed, then they're not qualified. It used to be simple. It used to be just count all the PCs in the organization, but that was 20 years ago. It's much more complex right now, so the qualified device definition is now much more complex. PCs used as service are not counted in that number. A line of business industry devices, what that is say there's a robot, an industrial robot, and there's a computer that controls that robot. So it's not a day-to-day in our normal understanding, the normal definition workstation. It's a specialized computer, industry device that controls that robot. Then it's not a qualified device. Qualified user, well, is a user of a qualified device or a user that connects to any of the enterprise service or enterprise online services, which could be not only your employee, because that's the biggest mistake when people count qualified users, they only count employees. No, it also includes consultants, contingent staff, contractors, on-site contractors. If they work for you somehow through a contract, if they consult you using your devices connected to your services, they must be counted in that qualified number. So it's not just your HR headcount. Hope it makes sense. A quick question. We're going to have a few questions like this to keep this a bit more entertaining. A quick question for you today. Company A and Company B don't own each other, but they're both owned by Holding H. Are they affiliated? Yes or no? Please type your answer in the chat. I'll give you a few, maybe a minute, just to see what's going on here as well. Just type your answer in the chat, and I'll tell you then what the right answer is. Okay, good. After a little delay, we get an answer. The right answer is A. That's correct. The right answer is A. Yes, they are affiliated indirectly. So This is something we've seen in practice when Microsoft looked at that and said, yes, they are affiliated indirectly. They don't own each other, but they're indirectly affiliated through the holding. So the answer is not B. It's arguable, but it's not. All right, moving on. There are Microsoft agreements, various Microsoft agreements, which still exist. Some of them you will see in your historic records, in your Microsoft license statement. So we will mention them, but we will not be covering them today because we're going to be only talking about the ones that you need to manage today, that you interact with in your organizations, in your companies, and where you're working. So the current agreements are, and don't overthink it right now because we're going to describe most of them. Microsoft Customer Agreement or CSP, which you've probably heard about, Enterprise Agreement or Enterprise Agreement Subscription, MPSA, still valid although declining, and open value for smaller companies. There are also retired agreements from which you will see lots of transactions in the companies you're working in or with. Which are open license agreement, which will officially be closed on the 1st of January next year, but unofficially try and place an order. Since about 2019, Microsoft are very reluctant to accept orders on open license agreements. So I know territories where from 1st January of 2019, there have been none, not a single open license agreement signed. And Select Plus is a very old, it's ancient, but because it's evergreen, because it never ends, people are still ordering through Select Plus. Well, at some point it'll probably decline completely. We can reshuffle and categorize these agreements, in various ways. So there's another thing I'd like you to understand, to learn at this stage. Is there are term agreements, which means they have a term after which they expire and you need to renew them, or, well, I'll move on to another agreement. And there are evergreen agreements, which you sign and then they provide you a framework to purchase licenses as and when, as you need them, and they never expire. So in regards to term agreements, enterprise agreement is sort of a term agreement, and I will explain you why I said sort of, but we usually see it. We usually teach people that it's a term agreement. Open value subscription is a term agreement. Open license is a 2-year term agreement, used to be. As I said, it's going to completely disappear soon. And then we have a few evergreen agreements on the right side of this slide. Another classification here is by the target organization. So there are agreements obviously aimed at smaller audiences, smaller companies and organizations, and there are some agreements that are aimed at larger organizations. So in that regard, you can see it on screen. There's no reason to waste your time. You can always come back because the next slide illustrates what I'm talking about with numbers. To some agreements, there are entry barriers. If we look at the most recent one, Microsoft Customer Agreement, which is sold through cloud solution providers, CSP, there's no entry barrier. You can start it with one license. Really, just buy one license through a CSP partner, and there you go. You have a CSP agreement with the terms of the MCA. Why I cut it off sort of at 2,400 is that is Microsoft's target audience, but you can have it. There are some organizations and companies that have 100K seats and they have a CSP agreement. So although it's not targeted at them, they still have it. Microsoft are not stopping you. Open value is an interesting one. So you need 5 licenses, but it's aimed at small companies. Again, at 500, it's not a cutoff point. You can sign it with if you're a large organization. But Microsoft will insist that you flip to an enterprise agreement, because enterprise agreement is very much alike to OV, but has more perks, more benefits, and it's aimed at companies that start from 500. MPSA is targeted at 250 computers, but then you can sign it with 10 computers. You can. It's just the way the entry barrier is calculated is a bit complex. We'll get to that in one of the further slides. And then we have enterprise agreements, which is a very rough cutoff. So when we're talking about an enterprise enrollment, which is for the products online services, there's an entry level of 500. If you have less than 500 devices or users, you won't sign an enterprise agreement. You won't be able to sign it. Microsoft will refuse it because you need to commit to at least that number in an enterprise agreement. And then obviously none of them, if you notice, none of them have real barrier at the top. Nobody prevents you from signing an agreement, any agreement from this list. Microsoft products and services. Yes, thank you. Of course it is. Microsoft product and services agreement. That was a question from Sonia. What does MPSA stand for? We will have a few slides about MPSA, and I will get back to this acronym. And this is a good response. We have a couple in our chat. And Daryl just typed in the chat that you can have a mixture of agreements. You don't have to sign just one. And this is what we advise our customers. If there's a way to save money and optimize licensing and cloud costs by utilizing multiple agreements, we will obviously suggest that. Right. So another categories we should also need to understand. So some of the agreements are transactional, which means you don't have to commit to anything. And we get into commitment. You just buy as and when the quantities you need. There are certain rules apply to the minimum numbers you can buy, but this is not a commitment. What is a commitment? What is a committed agreement? It's when you tell Microsoft that you want some perks and benefits of a better agreement in exchange for you promising them to license every single device or every single user with a certain flavor of software or an online service. That's the commitment. You commit. You promise. Every device in our organization, every qualified device, when we buy new devices, we will, dear Microsoft, buy licenses for these devices in accordance with our commitment. So you are tied by certain rules to have something licensed with a commitment. And we have more slides on that further in this training today. Every agreement is different. There are different events and milestones. So, for example, when I say true up, there is true up in an enterprise agreement, but there's no true up in open value, although they're very similar. They have different cost avoidance tactics. So if you know that there's a trick how to save money in an enterprise agreement, it may not apply to MPSA. It probably doesn't apply to MPSA or CSP. And there's always a different commercial and legal framework. So they're all very different. There are no two similar agreements in the Microsoft world. Maybe MPSA is somehow similar to Select Plus, still different. Still different. We're not going to talk about SPLA today, but what I'd like you to do is please join our session on this channel on the 8th of September. I think it's going to be just me because Daryl has a national holiday on the 8th. And, we're going to talk about SPLA. That's going to be sort of a management training. So we call it how to do SPLA properly, that session. 8th of September, another Wednesday, same time, just in between the training sessions to keep you entertained. Enterprise agreement, we get into to the most interesting part, to the biggest part of this training. Enterprise agreement, why? Because it's the most popular, it's the most popular agreement of them all. But I'd like you to first answer this question in chat. Is MPSA, if you were listening carefully, is MPSA a committed agreement? You maybe know. Does MPSA have a commitment, yes or no? Yeah, thanks, Daryl. Thank you for picking up those questions whilst people are answering. I don't know what.
Yeah, I'll take care of that, Alex. While you're presenting, yeah. I'll help moderate the questions as they come in.
Yeah, so I'm not going to waste too much time. The right question is B. We're very mindful of time today. We're trying to get into exact 2 hours because last time the session overran for 3.5 hours. We promise you we'll stick to the promise of 2 hours. So picking up the pace, everybody is answering B, which is correct. which is absolutely correct. It's not it's a transactional agreement. I wonder how many of you actually know licensing and are just here for the kicks. Anyway, enterprise agreement. So it's not really a term agreement. It's an agreement with term enrollments in it. But because you can't have an enterprise agreement without enrollments, when the last enrollment terminates, you don't renew it. Enterprise agreement terminates as well. Enrollments term is always 3 years, but you can extend it. The entry barrier is into the enterprise enrollment is 500 qualified users or devices. Even if you can sign it with fewer users or devices, and we'll get to that. But Microsoft target that agreement, and they probably won't talk to you. They will probably advise you to go with CSP or any other route if you don't have 500 users these days. This is where they want enterprise agreements to be signed, 500 and more. And by the way, that entry barrier may increase next year. We don't know for how many, but it may increase. It's a committed agreement. There's no enterprise agreement without commitment. And I'll explain it. Bear with me. And software assurance in an enterprise agreement is compulsory. So you can't buy just perpetual licenses. You always have to buy licenses with software assurance, with Microsoft's maintenance on top, with the ongoing cost that is expiring. There are 2 perks of an enterprise agreement. Exactly the same perks exist also in Select. So if you still have an active Select, you can use them as well. And by the way, they accumulate. You can use both. You can have 20 copies per title, per software title, in a dedicated training facility to learn how to use that software. What this must look like is, I've seen it once in real life, that training facility. It was actually a classroom that is locked, and you had to have a key or a key card to get into it. And all the computers there were dedicated to people of that bank learning how to use Microsoft software, Microsoft Office, Microsoft Visio, Microsoft Power Apps, whatnot. That's what you get through an enterprise agreement. The other perk is any of the Microsoft products can be evaluated for 60 days for up to 10 copies. You want to try something, by all means. You don't need an additional license. That is a perk granted to you by an enterprise agreement. Something that many forget. Let's talk about the document. So this is not an enterprise agreement. And this is my personal pain point, because we work with clients almost every week. There's a discussion with a client. Please send us your enterprise agreement document. So this is all they send, because this is the document that contains all the quantities and all the prices. That is not an enterprise agreement. That is just a very, very little part of it. So enterprise agreement is the most complex agreement of them all, and all of these documents matter. So the first one is the top level document called MBSA, Microsoft Business and Services Agreement. That is an evergreen agreement. Was designed to be one for the entirety of all the other agreements that you signed with Microsoft. I've seen when MBSA was re-signed in 6 years after previous enterprise agreement expired. I don't know why. It is designed to be evergreen. It is designed to be non-expiring. It sets some terms. Which terms I will explain to you. There's a slide about it. Which terms are set by MBSA. Under MBSA, you sign an enterprise agreement. Enterprise agreement itself is also, which is not a common knowledge, is also an evergreen document. It doesn't really expire. What expires is there's no enterprise agreement without enrollments, as I already said. There's no enterprise agreement without enrollments. It may be either, these days, there were actually 6 types of enrollments. Right now, there are 3. One is an educational, so we're not talking about that today. We don't really have that target audience from the education. So we'll cover the 2 that are relevant to 90%, 99% of all the organizations: Enterprise Enrollment and Server and Cloud Enrollment. So that is another document, and that document expires. And all the, I've already mentioned it, but all the terms and conditions of how you can use licenses are outlined in the Microsoft product terms, which is now a website. It used to be a document that Microsoft published every quarter, and then every month. So product terms, although not really a part of the enterprise agreement, all of these agreements refer to product terms all the time. When there's a question, what rights, what rights do apply to my licenses? The answer will be product terms of that version. So they always refer to product terms. It's not an agreement, as Daryl just rightfully commented. It's a set of licensing terms and conditions, but it makes an integral part of this document, what is called as a document stack. But that's not the end. There are other interesting documents there, from which I am always interested in at least product selection form for each enrollment, because that tells you what are the price levels and what are the product sets that were chosen for that particular agreement. Another one, actually 3 documents that I'm very interested in. So CTM is basically a set of amendments. So Microsoft, unlike Oracle, Microsoft never changed the language of their actual contracts. So all these forms will be standard. When you discuss something with them, when you negotiate an amendment, when you negotiate a bespoke term, that term will be in a so-called CTM. I don't remember what it stands for. I actually never knew. We just call it CTM. We used to call it addendum amendment. The official name is of a document is a CTM. That's where you may have it, you may not have it, but if you have it, I must see it. And then another one, which I already showed you, customer price sheet, because that's how we calculate how much you save. That's how you calculate how much you need to pay at an annual event to Microsoft. This is something that forms a part of the enterprise agreement package. I was told that in certain territories, the document has a different format. It's not this green Excel spreadsheet. It could be a completely different format, but it still exists. So, for example, in Russia, it is supplied in the form of a Word document. That's what it is.
I want to just add on to that, Alex, that for the customer price sheet, something that's worth mentioning in general, Microsoft still has 2 different channels for selling EAs. One is direct and one is indirect. So there are still countries, usually Middle East, Africa, and other regions that aren't main regions for Microsoft, that the entity that is actually signing the agreement is the reseller, the LSP. So what you'll find is that when you sign an agreement that's not direct with Microsoft, like in North America or in Europe, if you don't ask for a CPS, the reseller won't provide it to you. Microsoft does not provide a CPS for indirect enterprise agreements. So I highly recommend, if you are in an indirect country and you're on the customer side, you need to make sure that Microsoft / the reseller provides you with a customer price sheet.
Okay, thank you, Daryl. Let's move on. So, getting back to enrollments, as I said, there's no enterprise agreement without an enrollment. So enrollments are all termed. You sign them, in 3 years they expire. You can extend them for 3 more years. And an enterprise agreement must have at least 1 enrollment, so simple as that. So there are enrollments in an enterprise agreement. There's no enterprise agreement, I remind you, without commitment. It's a committed agreement. So commitment is promising Microsoft to buy certain products organization-wide, disregarding existing licenses. And that is very important, that basically even if you have Office licenses without a say for all your devices, when you sign an enterprise agreement, you need to buy Office licenses again through that enterprise agreement for every single device. That is the commitment. It completely disregards. You may negotiate, and we may help you. You may negotiate a discount depending on when you bought those licenses. Sometimes there's a potential, I would say. So another names for the commitment that you will be hearing in our software management community. Another names for commitment are enterprise products, enterprise commitment, enterprise services, platform commitment, standardization. These are all the terms that apply. It's just aliases for the same exact thing. Your enterprise commitment, your commitment to Microsoft to license something organization-wide. in the two most popular enrollments, these are the types of commitments. So Enterprise Enrollment is an enrollment where you commit to license client software or services, or services, clients and user compute. Server and Cloud Enrollment is for Datacentre. That's where you commit to license either service or Visual Studio or SQL Server. That is another type of enrollment that is dedicated to specifically targeted at the data center part of your estate. Any of these enrollments may have additional products. What does it mean, additional products? So, for example, if I go to the next slide, these are the types of these are the actual products that you commit to in both of the enrollments, one or another. If you look at the enterprise enrollment, so the products there, if it's not a purely services enrollment, that is for Office 365. If it's a software platform, then the products there are, there's only a list of 3 basically: Windows 10 Enterprise, Office Professional Plus of the current version, and Core Enterprise Cloud Bundle, again of the current version. If you want to buy Visio, you add it to this enterprise agreement or project as an additional product. On additional products, there are no commitments. So if you have 1,000 qualified devices, you have to license all those base products that are listed on this slide, enterprise products, for all of that 1,000 devices. But if you just need 20 copies of Visio, you just buy 20 copies of Visio, you place that order through the enterprise agreement, through the enterprise enrollment, and that's fine. Exactly the same thing is valid for the Server and Cloud Enrollment. I've seen a Server Cloud Enrollment that was signed for, so the company committed to Core Infrastructure Server Suite, which is Windows Server plus System Center, for all their servers. And they even added Office Professional Plus to the SCE, but not as a committed product, as an additional product. That is allowed. You can say, you need to commit to at least one product in an enrollment, and then you can add any of the other products without commitment to that enrollment. Does it make sense? I hope it does. Moving on, trying to save time. You can get an additional discount if you still sign an enterprise agreement that is not Office 365 or a mixture, Office 365 plus on-premises software, when you buy these 3 items as a platform. There's so-called professional platform, which includes Core Cal Suite, and an enterprise platform, which is obviously includes Enterprise Cal Suite. That's the difference between those 2 platforms. The reason to buy a platform is if you want all of these products for every single qualified device, then you get an additional discount for that package. CTM, custom terms. What does M stand for? We have this from Pradeep. Custom terms. What? Custom terms material. What does M stand for? Probably custom terms. That's what I thought as well. Okay, thanks for that. You probably have heard that there's an enterprise agreement and there's an enterprise agreement subscription. And that name is valid. But actually, let me explain how that works, because it's quite important to know, not to waste your time then. EA is for perpetual licenses. EAS is for subscription licenses. Services are always subscriptions and can be added to both. And then the enterprise agreement language, the actual document that is called enterprise agreement, is exactly the same in both EA and EAS. It's actually called just enterprise agreement. There's no document that is called enterprise agreement subscription. It doesn't exist. The enrollments are different, and that's where that name comes from. So when you hear enterprise agreement subscription, enterprise subscription agreement, either this or that, what it means is there's an EA with an enterprise subscription enrollment. That's what it means. And they could be even an EA when you have multiple countries and huge entities in various countries, where one country has a subscription enrollment and another one under the same enterprise agreement has a non-subscription enrollment. It's rare, but I've seen it. It's possible. So now I will call them enrollments because that's what they are. So enterprise enrollment is for perpetual licenses with software assurance. As I said before, software assurance is something you can't avoid. It's compulsory. It has spread payments. It's one of the features of the enterprise agreement, spread payments. I'll explain what that is. But basically, it means you don't have to buy a license up front. You can pay it in 3 installments, 1/3, exact 1/3 of the cost. And there's an annual true-up procedure. If the quantity of your licenses changes that you need, you can buy additional licenses in the end of an annuity period, not at the time when you deploy them. So that is a feature of an enterprise agreement. Enterprise subscription enrollment, same 3 things. They which are absolutely which have the same basic concept, but they are either named differently or they executed differently. So enterprise subscription agreement is essentially for subscription licenses, where you don't get, they expire. It expires, they expire. You lose licenses. You need to either buy them out or renew it. Instead of spread payments, there's an annual subscription fee. It's also annual. Same logic applies, but it's a subscription fee. And instead of a true-up, the event is called annual order. That commitment to Microsoft, that obligation to Microsoft that you have on an annual basis is called annual order. You need to reorder products every year. Pricing is lower for an enterprise subscription agreement, as rightfully said Daryl.
Just one caveat on that, Alex, is that it's lower at the start when you compare 2 types, when you compare an enterprise agreement and an enterprise subscription at the start of a period of license and software assurance. What usually happens is that if you are a new customer and you're looking at a license plus software assurance EA compared to an EAS, you need to think beyond 3 years. So just keep in mind that an agreement doesn't end after 3 years. It ends contractually, but you need to continue it. With an enterprise agreement, going forward, I don't want to confuse everybody. You only pay for the software assurance. You don't pay for the perpetual part. So actually an EA after 3+ years starts to be, the price drops compared to a subscription agreement. So I just want to leave you with the thought that when you are evaluating, or if you're evaluating an EA compared to an EAS, don't look just at a 3-year period from a financial perspective. You need to look at least 5 to 6 years. And I want to just stop there, just leave you with that thought going forward.
That is a very good advice. We get into pricing, by the way. So enterprise agreement, and subscriptions for online services exist in both. And it could be a bit confusing. You can have subscription for Office 365 in a non-subscription enterprise enrollment. Yes, it's possible. EA has predefined price levels. Enterprise enrollment has predefined price levels based on either the number of desktops or the number of users, depending on what is your base metric, either desktops or users, qualified metric. Subscription level or enterprise enrollment level is agreed with Microsoft at signing. You count all your qualifying devices and then you agree. And then also, we were not talking about it today, but unofficially, you also can negotiate another discount on top of that, which is what we do, SAMexpert. We help companies negotiate better discounts. And subscription level really depends on an annual order. So it may happen that you were 5,900 and you were in level B, and then next year you grew and went above 6,000, and then basically level C discounts will start applying to you. But we had this discussion with Daryl today, and Daryl's advice. Daryl, I can give you the mic. You can tell your advice to
yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Daryl. So basically, my advice for you, if you are just below one of the price levels, so just say you're at level B. You're almost level B. You haven't got 2,400. You've got 2,300 or even 2,200 devices. there are times that it's worthwhile adding additional devices or users. Getting beyond that threshold, what will happen is that the additional cost for the users will be offset by negotiating a better price. So you ask for a discount. Number two, the difference in price levels in average depends on Office 365 is around 3% between the levels, and on additional products and additional servers, it's 6 to 7%. So when you take everything into consideration, you'll get a better price overall because your additional products will be discounted. You'll get an additional discounted, negotiated, and then you'll be, for all your true ups, meaning for your future purchases, you'll already be at level B. So always consider when you're very close to the threshold or the next level to increase the quantity in order to increase the overall pricing, and also think about what the future is going to bring going forward.
Thanks, Daryl. And by the way, one note about if you work for a government organization or an academic organization, as far as I remember, on every Microsoft leveled agreement, when there are levels like this, government and academic get level D by default, and sometimes governments strike deals with incredible discounts even from the level D. So, Daryl, correct me if I'm wrong. As far as I know, government and academic, I can open the price list. I just don't sell licenses.
It's not automatic. It's not automatic. It's still tiered. It's for academics that there is a ABCD price list. It is leveled, very similar to a regular EA, but just due to the size of usually academic organizations with the number of full-time students or full-time employees, it's a different metric completely for education. It goes, I think, with FTEs or full-time
educational workers, they call
educational workers. Yeah, I haven't done an education agreement in a while. And with government, just because of the sheer size of the governments, it's a framework agreement for the entire government, where the government does a framework agreement, and then each entity underneath that picks and chooses, well, depending on the agreement, basically just a type of affiliates that are aggregated to the full quantity. Then I agree, it's almost always over level D, just because of the pure size of a government or defense organization, or, as you said, education as well.
Okay. Right. Well, the next slide is very, very important because a lot of things revolve around the minimal order. So with enterprise products on an enterprise enrollment, the minimal order is a mix of products and services enough to cover all qualified users and devices. And I have a picture on the next slide to demonstrate that. So when you have at least one enterprise product, then you're bound by that commitment to license all your qualified base, always. But if you sign an enterprise enrollment or enterprise subscription enrollment for enterprise online services only, then there's no such commitment for all the qualified users and devices. All you need to do is you need to maintain 500 subscriptions. It's a very important thing. So you can have these days, and this is why enterprise agreement is a bit of a Frankenstein monster these days. These days you can have an enterprise agreement that is purely for products, an enterprise enrollment that is purely for services, and you can have a mix. And then when you have either just products or a mix, you need to commit to license every single qualified device or user. When it's enterprise online services only, that is, I'm not making this up. I took a quote from the enterprise agreement today. I found all the actual paperwork. I can't demonstrate it because it's NDA. I can't disclose it. Microsoft do not publish that to public. You can Google it. You can find it. Sometimes I find it like that. When it's, again, just going back to that, when it's just for subscriptions, the minimal order is 500 subscriptions, and that affects license reductions, which we will cover in a few slides from now. And this is the demonstration of what I just said about initial minimal order. So imagine you have 1,500 qualified devices, as on this slide, and you may have a mixture of 1,000 enterprise products for 1,000 devices, which are licensed per device, and then user subscriptions, which will be covering usage of the same products, but through user licenses acquired as online services. Like Windows Enterprise is 3 per user. Office Professional Plus, Pro Plus, Office 365 Pro Plus, those kind of things. You can have this mixture. It's absolutely bonkers how you manage this. I usually advise against it, but this is not a rare configuration. In the majority of cases, Microsoft try to sign an enterprise enrollment that will be purely for services. That's what they try to do. When this happens is when a company may start during the term with products only enrollment, and then they may add new users and new devices and cover them by buying user subscription licenses to Microsoft 365. If you go to get licensing rates, it's one of the questions in the exam. And what they ask is it allowed? Yes, it is allowed. This is what it results in, this sort of mixture. But when, going back to previous slide, when you only have online services, then the minimum was 500, regardless of how many devices or users you have, because you don't need to count qualified users or devices anymore. When it's just for the Microsoft 365, Office 365, EMS 365 services. So I have a question for you. What is the term of an enterprise agreement? Is it 3 years? Is it 6 years? Or is it evergreen? It's A, B, or C. Do we have any questions to pick? And by the way, ask your questions. So don't hesitate. Ask your questions. We will be picking your questions. We usually answer a lot of questions during these lives. Oh, this is a good one. It's not a question. So from Jaron is, if I pronounce your name, I'm sorry if I pronounce your name correctly, education qualified users. So who's clever? Who's been listening? It's a trick question. It is a trick question. It is actually C. The enterprise agreement is evergreen, but those who answer A, that is also correct if you apply the name enterprise agreement to the enterprise enrollment. It's enterprise enrollment that is 3 years. It may be 6, by the way, because you may extend it for 3 more years, but you have to actively extend it. So the answer to this question, if you just stick to the words, and in our profession, in software asset management and licensing, you must be very what's what I'm looking for? Mindful about the wording, and the wording here is enterprise agreement, and therefore the EA, that document. If you look at the term and termination clauses, it terminates by one of the sides. So you may terminate it, Microsoft may terminate it, but it's not automatically terminated. Term applies to enrollment, absolutely correct. So. Moving on, and actually I need to pick up the pace because we're a bit late on our schedule. Another question, please pay attention. So the answers here D and E, not to mix up with the previous one. Can you buy online service subscriptions in the perpetual enterprise enrollment? Yes or no? Oh, hi, Carl. Hello, Carl. So, who knows the answer? It's D or E. Can you buy online service subscriptions in a perpetual enterprise enrollment? So the answer is yes. Funny enough, it's possible to buy it. If you sign a new one, just for online services, Microsoft will insist it to be an enterprise subscription enrollment. But what if you want to buy additional products and keep them perpetual? That you can only do in an enterprise enrollment or an SE. So you may have various combinations, but this is possible. So the answer here is D. Yes, it's possible. It's possible, so Microsoft doesn't stop you. That's why lots of these things stopped making sense when they introduced online services. It used to be much simpler. Subscriptions were in subscriptions. Perpetual or perpetual? And the last question here, we're not going to have like 3 questions in a row anymore. This is the last one. Okay, so I hope we can answer it. You have an enterprise enrollment with platform commitment. You committed to platform. Your affiliate listed on the enrollment, your affiliate organization, your subsidiary in another country, ordered Office Professional Plus licenses. Can they use them? Yes or no? It's a bit of a preliminary question, but I hope you understood what I was. If you were listening carefully to what I was saying, you would be able to answer this question. Bit of a tip: platform is a combination of Windows, Office Professional Plus, and Core Cal Suites, or Enterprise Cal Suite. They buy absolutely legitimate licenses. It's amazing that the answer is F, and that is okay. So that's a pretty common mistake. If you committed to something, you have to buy that product. You bought these Office Professional Plus licenses, you can't use them.
Alex, that was a trick question.
It was a very tricky question.
It was a trick question.
I'm going to explain it in 30 minutes. I'm going to explain it in 30 minutes from now. Because I'm going to explain it, but just a bit, just running ahead of the train. When you commit to buy a certain product through the enterprise agreement, and that affiliate, I specifically put it here, it is listed on the enrollment. It's part of the enrollment. So they also have to buy platforms. They went ahead and bought some separate Office Professional Plus licenses, completely legitimate licenses. The licenses are fine, but they may not use them because now they need to put them somewhere aside. Money is thrown away already. And by the way, you have about 30 to 60 days to actually cancel the order and get back your money. So there's a money back facility. But then if you forget that, and I see this all the time, if you forget that, then they will need to buy them again as platforms through the enterprise agreement. So that money was wasted. They can't use them. Legitimate licenses, perfect licenses, can't use them. So be careful with commitments. Be careful with commitments. But those of you who will survive another 30 minutes, I have a slide on that to explain what not to do. Right. So enterprise enrollment, just a bit of a mechanics of an enterprise enrollment. So I told you there are spread payments. So what it looks like is you have an agreement term, 3 years. Say you signed it in 2021, it goes up to 2024. So for all the products that you put in the initial order, that is an official term. Initial order, your first order, when you sign an enterprise agreement, you can't sign enrollment. You can't sign an enrollment without an initial order. And then it's basically spread in 1/3. This is an enterprise enrollment. This is an enterprise enrollment, which is for perpetual licenses, not subscriptions. Basically, the cost of the license plus software assurance for the entirety of the agreement is split in 3 annual payments. It's a commercial feature. There's no interest, by the way. So I thought there's interest, like in banks. No, there isn't. It's an exact 1/3. If you miss the cancellation period, Olivia, I'll pick your question up in the end of this section. I promise you, I'll get back to that. So, buying enterprise products in EA. So the ones that enterprise products you always is the committed products, enterprise products. I told you it's another name for the same thing. And so enterprise products, not services. So Office, Windows, CALs, they must be on the initial commitment. And then say, this is a hypothetical organization. Hypothetical organization that deploys 100 more devices in the first year, then 400 in the second year, then they decommission 300. This line is the number of devices they have, qualified devices, and deploy 150 in the last year. So how do you deal? Okay, you placed your initial order, and then you for the initial quantity, the payments are spread in 1/3. Does that apply to additional licenses? No, it doesn't. So all the additional licenses you must purchase as a one-off fee, which is called a true-up cost of a license. I have a few slides on this, so buckle up. I'll explain everything. So in the end of the first year, and this is the beauty of the true-up. This is one of the beauties of an enterprise agreement, because you can plan. You don't have, for the enterprise products, for the ones that form your platform, your commitment, you only pay in the end of the annual period. And in this case, you true up 100 licenses. Again, payments are not spread. It's a one-off payment. Then in the end of the second year on the enterprise products, and please pay attention to this, you true up only the difference that you have by the end of the second year. Same applies to any other year. If you have spikes like this, what you true up, what you report to Microsoft, what you pay for, is the difference between what you had and what you have at the end of the year. Hope it makes sense. David, I appreciate your comment. I really do. Thank you for that. So, and then basically, in this case, I need to go back to my slides. In the third year, you true up another 150. So what I'd like you to remember is that for what you paid on the initial commitment, what you agreed on the initial order, you pay upfront 3 annual installments. For all the additional licenses, you pay in arrears in the end of the year. So don't forget that there's another true up just before the renewal. There's another true up always. Don't forget to true up your licenses before you renew. Additional products, which are not your platform products, are entirely different. And please pay attention to this. So many people suffered by not understanding this, by misinterpreting this. I can't count. A friend of mine with whom I discussed it today, he was like, oh, I didn't know. And he's been in this industry for 10 years. So additional products, same graph. I specifically kept the same graph so to explain the dynamics with additional products. So if you put them on the initial order, you also have a true-up facility here, because what they call is a previously ordered products. Previously ordered products have a true-up facility. You can pay for them for the difference in the end of the year. Carl, I will discuss going down. We'll touch on that. So and okay, if you go down, good question. Daryl, I will pick it up now because that's a good one. So what happens if you go down on the next period but not below the initial order? Thing is, this is Enterprise Enrollment. We're talking about perpetual licenses. There's no going down on perpetual licenses. You only add them up. Even if your number of qualified devices decreased, you just report 0 increase. You don't report decrease on perpetual licenses. You can decrease subscriptions, and that's when minimal order applies. And I have a few corrections to what I was teaching before, because I've read a new form of an enterprise agreement, and it's a bit different now. So with additional products, what you true up in the second year, and this is something not everybody knows, and this is a bit upsetting. What you true up in the second year is not what you have by the end of the year, but actually your high watermark. That is the requirement of the enterprise enrollment. There's an opposite mistake. I had to deal with a Microsoft representative, Microsoft salesperson, pushing a customer to true up high watermark on the enterprise products, the previous slide. So this rule does not apply to enterprise products. So please remember, enterprise products, you true up the actual difference by the end of the annual period. Additional products, you have to true up the high watermark. That is your obligation. If Microsoft know about that, you have to true that up. And then you think, okay, fine, but in the third year, I have fewer licenses. Can I reduce them? Going back to your question, Carl. No, reductions are not available, so you just keep the same quantity. And if you have nothing to true up, at all, you will have one or two products to true up. But if you have nothing to true up, there's still an obligation to submit a zero increase report to Microsoft. There's a simpler form, which is not a true up form, that you submit to Microsoft. Just basically say nothing has changed, and they then bill you for the next annual period. Right. So it gets complicated. Please bear with me. These visualizations, these graphs, some of them don't exist on the internet. I had to actually, I took ideas from existing graphs, the first 3 or 5. Then the rest of them I had to draw myself because they just don't exist. So, and this affects your costs. This affects your cost planning. This affects your cost savings, your procurement and budgeting procedures. So say there's a new product that never has been audited in EA. Example, at the beginning, you audit your platform products and some projects. And then mid-year, you decided to buy Visio. So what happens? This is your Visio. 0 at start, dash line. And then mid-2021, you decide to buy, deploy some Visios, you need license for them. You add that product to the agreement. So first and foremost, it's not price fixed. So the current price will apply to it when you first order it. And you have to pay immediately. But then it becomes a previously ordered product, and in the consecutive years, you get true-ups. But the first order for such product must be placed immediately in the same month. You can't wait until the end of the year. In some locations, and United Kingdom is one of those, Microsoft doesn't bother. They really just don't bother. They just ask you, you know what, just pay everything in a true-up. But legally and contractually, that is the requirement. And there are countries where this is enforced. So please know that. So when something hasn't yet been on the EA, on the first initial purchase, you pay immediately. And that is the rule that applies to perpetual licenses. Daryl, I have actually a question for you because this is something I don't know. I was asked today. So we fixed the price. This orange thing, current price, for this product, for purchases, at this point. This will probably be what true up year 1 price, and we'll take it from the current price list. How do we fix prices? Because they should be fixed. Because then you get the price fix on this product for the second and third year. Is it somehow tracked in the system on Microsoft? So how does it work? Because I don't know.
It's not fixed. If you're talking about a new product that you true up during the first year.
So you bought it in the first year, and then you true it up in the second and third. It's not fixed on your CPS.
It's not fixed anywhere. It will be the then current true up price based on your current level. That's all it is.
Okay.
It will be that price list at that date.
Can you negotiate that if it's a big purchase?
If it's during the period of the agreement, I would definitely say yes. But it needs to be a substantial quantity. For example, what I've seen previously is take Dynamic 365. So if you're taking, I don't know, if you're looking at a very large dynamic rollout, this is a new project. You've been benchmarking Dynamics against a competitor. Definitely, this is something to be negotiated, even if it is midterm and it wasn't part of your initial agreement. I would actually say more that if you're starting off an agreement and you know that there's a very large deployment of Dynamics coming in the next few months, I would even wait with that. I wouldn't put it into the agreement. I would wait for that and keep it out of the agreement so you have leverage, because that account manager that you're working with is always going to be looking for additional revenue, something new to bring to the table. So keep that in your pocket and play it well.
Thanks, Daryl. So yeah, moving on. So enterprise services, not products, services, Office 365. The dynamics is again different. This is why enterprise agreement is so messed up. So I put here an addition and then a reduction below the first committed below the first committed quantity. So I spent a lot of time on researching this, reading all the guides and the actual text of the agreement. And this is the conclusion. And this is something, unfortunately, that doesn't exist on the internet. So these graphs don't exist on the internet. There's no way to confirm that. So say you need more Office 365 licenses, 100 mid-year. You reserve them. You don't pay for them straight away, because there's also like sort of a true-up facility. But it works a bit differently, because what you then do is you buy for that 100 licenses in arrears, for prorated to the number of months you use them, back to the months when you reserve them. That's how it works. And if you intend to keep them, you just pay the next annual fee. In this case, for 5,100 licenses for the next year. That's how it works with service licenses that are your enterprise licenses that are part of that enterprise platform which you've chosen for your enterprise agreement. And then in 2023, here I've put that because it reduces the cost reduces for the third year. You can buy you can pay for fewer subscription licenses for Office 365, 4,900, but there's a caveat. It's what Carl wrote in his question about the initial order requirements. So I think disregard my comments here. Just listen to me. Remember, I told you about the initial order requirements. If you have a mixture, products plus services, you can't go below the qualified base. If you only have services, then you can't go below 500. These are the two terms you need to be you need to respect when you reduce your subscriptions. So we used to say, and that was the language of the previous enterprise agreement, that you cannot reduce below the initially committed number. It's I can privately I can show you a screenshot if you want, but it's not there. It's not written like that, at least either anymore, or maybe we misread it last time. So yes, you may reduce them. Right, additional service licenses, very much like that. So you also just reserve, and then you pay in the end. Same dynamics, and you can reduce them to zero. So nothing. Sorry, let me go back very quickly. Just stop on that slide so you can see it. Yeah, so you can reduce to zero because there's no commitment. They are additional service licenses. Licenses that you add onto the agreement. Sorry, service licenses. Again, zero initial order. Then you decided to buy, I don't know, Power BI. Then you have to pay upfront, prorated for the number of months that you pay upfront until the annuity, and then it becomes just normal annual upfront payment, like in the previous slide. So please remember that services are different. If you want to spend more time with these slides, this recording will stay on the channel. It will stay on the channel. It will be here. You can always rewatch it. But what I would like you to take home today is services and products have absolutely different dynamic. True up. As I said, nothing to true up. Report zero increase. Won't stop here because I've already said it twice. So true up cost on products. What do you pay at the true up? And this is important because you think, fine, if a license also includes software assurance in an enterprise agreement, I should be paying less software assurance each year when I buy a license until the end of the agreement, and that is correct. So what you pay for at the true up is the full license cost plus software assurance for the remainder of the year, 1 or 2 years. It will be either for 1 year or for 2 years, and then you pay. And if you true up in the end, you don't pay SA for the future period because it's the end of the term. But what you also pay is you pay the cost of 6 months of SA backwards. It's always like this. Whenever you true up. So true up prices for the products that you had on the initial order are fixed in your CPS. You can find them there. And this is how it looks. So maybe less theoretical, more visual. So first year, when you true up in the end of the first year, you pay 100% license plus 30 months of SA. Second year, 100% license plus 18 months of SA. And then in the end of the third year, 100% license again, and 6 months of SA. So they're decreasing. And one of the tips that I give to my customers is if you want to deploy something just before the true up, wait a few days. You're going to save a whole year of SA costs, and that payment will be in the end of the next year. So there's no reason to rush deploying something if you can save quite a bit of money, unless there's a technical reason to do so. So, question to you. You initially bought and assigned 30 Visio licenses. In the second year, you installed 50 more copies, but then you removed 20 unused before the true-up, resulting in 60 total. How many Visio licenses do you have to include in the second year true-up order? So 30 plus 50 minus 20 becomes 60. But how many do you need to true up? Okay, I'll give you 1 minute. We need to pick up the pace. It's not a rocket science question. All right. So if you've given up, you need to true up the high watermark, which is in this case, because you installed 50 copies in the second year, you have to true up 50. And you will end up with 80 licenses, although you're actually using just 60. You need to true up 50 licenses. No one's given that response. Because additional products, Visio is an additional product. Additional products, you have to true up at the high watermark. That's it. Well, it's a tricky question. And this has caught so many people. So if you're caught by that question, don't be upset. You're one of many. Enterprise subscription enrollment, a bit of a different dynamic, so not going to spend too much time on it. So with subscription licenses and subscription enrollments, remember there are no true ups. There are annual orders. You pay up front for the license you're going to be using in the year ahead. So initial order of 1,800, then they added 200 more licenses in the first year, added 400 in the second year, removed 700, so drop below. Subscription products, not services. What do I mean is you can buy the same Windows, Office Professional Plus, and car bundles as subscription licenses, which expire in the end of the term. Different rules apply to those. You can have Office Professional Plus, not Office 365, as a subscription. So in this case, all these numbers are changing. So what happens here with this? So you added 200. It's almost like a true up. But it's not, because you're not paying for the license you added. You just basically place an order for the next year for 2,000 licenses, your new quantity. Then you add and remove, and then in the end, you can still reduce for the third year. Subscription license may be reduced, even product license, not just services. But you have to respect the requirements of the initial order. Then again, no limit on the initial quantity. The initial order doesn't mean initial quantity. It means the minimal requirements. The minimal requirements. I can argue about it. This is how it looks, and I read it in 2 languages, so I'm pretty confident about it. So additional products which were in the initial order, when you add them, either the ones that you had in the initial order or the ones that you add later, you always, when you increase them, additional products in an enterprise subscription enrollment, you always have to pay for the entire year in the month when you install them. Always. There's no delayed true up or anything else. There are always immediate payments. You increase that, pay again, and then you reduce. You may reduce to 0, but then remember that if you increase additional products in an enterprise subscription enrollment, and there was a large company I worked with that actually. They broke their relationship with Microsoft, and Microsoft knew that they're not doing this, and Microsoft punished them for it. Same applies to new products, exactly the same dynamics. Nothing new. It's exactly the same thing. The only thing is you don't have a price fix. The only difference is you don't have a price fix yet. So moving on. Another question for you. What is the annual event obligation in an enterprise enrollment? A, true up. B, annual order. In an enterprise enrollment. Andrew, so you say, how do you remove midterm? You don't remove midterm. You deinstall software, then you need fewer licenses. That's what I wanted to show on that graph, that you just need fewer licenses. You reduce the quantity of products you're running, therefore the requirement. You don't remove the licenses. Annual payment to the remaining year, whole calendar year, the current year. You pay for. You installed it mid 2021. You pay for 2021, not for the next on additional products. Which is the big difference? platform products, enterprise products. So the answer here is A. Yeah, if you've been paying attention to the wording, enterprise enrollment, the answer is A. So Server and Cloud Enrollment is a completely different beast in an enterprise agreement, and I'm speeding up. It's for Datacentre. It's same term, 3 years. Unlike Enterprise Enrollment, where you have one enrollment for subscription, one for perpetual, on the Server and Cloud Enrollment, you can mix them much. You can meet all your requirements with purely subscriptions. Purely subscriptions. You can sign an enterprise agreement with just a Server Cloud Enrollment. And I know some Microsoft subs where you will try that and they will stop you because they just don't like it. But strictly speaking, yes, you can. You can have an enterprise agreement with just an SC. You can add any additional products. So you can have an SC and put Office in it instead of a platform commitment. You can add Azure, and in direct markets right now, you can't have an SC for Azure only. In indirect markets, you can still sign an SC just for Azure. So I'll cover that. We're going to have I think the next training session in 2 weeks is about cloud. It is. This is where I will cover this nuances about Azure, how you order Azure in various different agreements, and it's all different. It's not the same. And then there are different entry barriers to enterprise enrollment, obviously, because this is a data center enrollment. So entry barriers, entry quantities. Without those, you can't sign it. Are calculated based on certain metrics that apply to not to users, not to devices, but to data center. Right. So you can choose components, or you can mix and match, but you need to commit to at least one. It's either core infrastructure suite, which is a server operating system with System Center, or application platform, so databases, or optionally. So with the application platform, SQL must be on it, but you can also add SharePoint and Beanstalk. Another component that is also you can choose is you can have an SC just with Visual Studio licenses, developer platform. And Microsoft Azure, as I said, in indirect markets, you can still have an SC just with Azure. In direct markets, which is the majority of developed countries, you can't anymore sign it. You have to add Azure to any of the other components. So that's how it works. With the software, the commitment is to software assurance across installed base. This is how Microsoft formulated. But basically, let me explain this. So the keyword here is installed. And I've seen another bullshit attempts from salespeople to say, no, you need to rebuy, say, for all your existing licenses. That's not the thing. So you may have 500 licenses, and you only need 300 servers. This is what you need to buy: 300 servers, installed base. So you need to what you do is with and in more details with all the pictures. It's going to be in one of the training sessions. We'll be discussing data center licensing. But quickly, what you need to do is if there are any licenses that you have from your previous term with active software assurance, and you sign a new Server Cloud Enrollment, you renew SA on them. With the licenses that don't have active software assurance, but they are signed to your data center, if you commit to this component, you have to either rebuy them, repurchase them with software assurance, or which is cheaper and makes more sense these days, you can buy subscriptions. So you just need to basically let me give you an example. You have 300 licensable SQL servers, hardware. Let's simplify this. Licensable hardware SQL servers, 300. You have 200 of them covered with licenses with software assurance, and 100 with licenses without software assurance. So what you do is you renew software assurance on 200, and for the rest of them, for the 100, you either subscribe to new licenses, or you buy new licenses, perpetual license with SA. These are your options. So and Azure is upfront commitment. Where, as I said, we'll discuss upfront commitments on Azure in the next training sessions. So the minimums are for the core infrastructure, it's 400 cores, or 200 two-core packs, or what was that? What is it going to be? Anyway, divide by 16. 16 core packs, 400 single cores. That is the commitment on the if you want that component. If you want the application platform component, it's either 5 SQL Server licenses plus 250 SQL cows, or 50 SQL Server core licenses of any edition. Again, single core licenses, 50, so 25 core packs. And optionally, you can also drop in Bestock. If you want it to be a part of the platform with a discount, then the commitment is 24 core licenses, or 5 SharePoint licenses, the same as Bestock. It's an optional addition to this application platform. See, this is not dependent on users. This is dependent on servers, on server metrics. Developer platform, 20 licenses of any Visual Studio Enterprise subscription or MSDN platforms. A mix of them. You can mix them. You don't have to choose one. Right. And minimums may be met with either perpetual license with software assurance or subscription license or any mix of the above. So you don't have to. It's quite flexible. It's a bit complicated because of that, but it's quite flexible. So a subscriptions may be added to an SCE at any time, but there are strings attached. So unless it's the 3rd year. So what you do is you pay prorated by month from the day of installation until the end of the year. And then even if you remove the service, you still have to commit to another year, another 12 months. This is how it works. So say you deployed your enterprise agreement ends in New Year, 1st of January. You deployed a few servers in September, and then you remove them in just in December, just before the end of the year. And you add subscriptions for them. You still have to pay for those subscriptions for another year. This is how it works. I can't explain that. That's the math with agent subscription units. The minimum commitment is 12 months. And you can only reduce them at an annual event. Therefore, that's the months you're using them plus 1 year at least, if not two. So why would you consider Server and Cloud Enrollment? Well, firstly, if you want to standardize, and sometimes this is a good reason. We want to upgrade all the server farms, all the server estate to current version. We want to have software assurance. We're using System Center everywhere. You can't buy System Center without software assurance. So let's standardize on say core infrastructure server. Then you always get on any component, you get 15% discount on license plus software assurance, and you get 5% discount on just software assurance. So it's discounts, standardization and discounts. These are the reasons to sign Server and Cloud Enrollment. No other reasons. The price level is either level A or always. There are no predefined levels of pricing, or your current level from your another enrollment, or MPSA, or Select Plus. So if you have MPSA with the price level in the server pool of D, then your SCE will be automatically level D. It inherits price level from a better agreement. That's what it does. So there are no predefined, no other barriers. So my question to you, can you sign an SCE for Visual Studio only? I'll give you 1 minute because now we need to quickly move on. Can you sign a Server and Cloud Enrollment which will be just for Visual Studio only? So essentially, can you have an enterprise agreement just for Visual Studio? Good answer from Chris. Chris, well, you know what? I'll put you on screen. You said no. And I sort of agree with you. And I'll explain why. Yeah, I will hand over the next section to Daryl because I need a drink. So in theory, yes. In theory, yes, you can. The only reason I would say no is because Microsoft won't let you. But first thing, you can have an SCE just for the developer platform, and you can have an enterprise agreement with just an SCE. It's just when you try to do it, you'll have an immense resistance. But legally, by the book of the agreement, yes, you can do that. Anyway, so Daryl, the managing EA section. So we get into kind of business section, and the first slide is your options in the end of the enrollment.
Okay, so I'll take it from here. I just need you to move the slides forward as you have control. So let's talk about the options at the end of the period. Basically, we have two types of agreements. We have the perpetual plus SA, the license plus software assurance for the enterprise agreement. Then we have for the enterprise subscription. So at the end of the first term, first 3 years, you're ending your agreement. One, you can renew only for software assurance because you've already paid for the full duration of the license. You can extend for 3 years, but again, extension, we'll talk about extension. What are the terms of the extension? You can renew software assurance. You can move it to another agreement. Again, I don't recommend that. It's an option, not recommended. Or you can basically stop renewing, stop paying for software assurance, but then you're going to lose a lot of software assurance benefits. And as Alex spoke about, software assurance are tied very closely to your benefits of virtualization and other benefits that today you can't basically run a data center without. On the subscription side, it's completely different. If you don't renew, you're basically dead. You can't use anything. You need to do something. You need to either renew, move to a CSP or to another type of agreement, or maybe to a competitor. But basically, it's dead. You can't use any other licenses under a subscription agreement. Or you can, again, same option, extend for 3 years, renegotiate. Pricing is going to change. We'll talk about that. Or, as I said, uninstall everything if you're not using it. There is an option. We'll talk about a buyout option. Let's move forward and we'll talk about the buyout option in a second, Alex.
We have renewal, but you already said all about renewal.
So then let's just move on.
Extension, you've covered it.
So let me just stop on extension a second. So even though the agreement has a 3-year extension, people jump on that 3-year extension and say, well, let's renew for 3 years and keep all the terms and conditions, all the great terms and conditions that we've already negotiated. You can renew the agreement, but the terms are going to reset. So keep in mind, your pricing is set for 3 years only. The renewal term, that additional extension does not provide you with 3 years of additional pricing that's been locked in. That is a completely new negotiation. Many organizations actually, that's where there's a big misunderstanding, and procurement or sometimes management are looking for that 3-year benefit of the same pricing. But no, Microsoft's actually going to peak your pricing. It's going to go up. You're going to have to renegotiate that. Let's move on.
Yeah, so buyout. I have 2 slides on buyout. So one is, buy perpetual licenses out in the end of the subscription term.
So let me just talk about a buyout. So when you reach the end of the subscription agreement, this is only for the enterprise subscription. There is a formula that you can utilize. Keep me honest here, Alex, that if it's 1.75 in the agreement. So basically, it's 1.75.
I think so. Yeah, I think it's close. I don't remember it. I don't memorize that number. But
if anybody remembers the exact number, then please help us. But I think it's 1.75. So basically, you take the cost of your license and software assurance that you've paid, and then you multiply it by 1.75, and then that's the formula that you use, and then you've bought out the products. What does that mean? Now you have perpetual licenses for the latest edition, and you can take a decision either not to renew now, because you've bought them out, so you actually own the product, or you can then move on just to a software assurance option. You can go to an enterprise agreement, perpetual, and renew your software assurance agreement. Again, once you reach that point in the agreement, this is not something trivial. Do the calculation, take a 3 to 6 year outlook, put it in an Excel, and then look at all your alternatives, CSP being one, and a perpetual enterprise agreement being the second one. Let's move on.
Yeah. So stop using the say benefits, but we've
Yeah,
said
we've
that
talked about
many
that.
times.
Not recommended. Now,
So
as
going
yeah,
back to document stack. What I wanted to demonstrate here on this slide is that there are a few documents that would like to draw attention to, because some people ask us, where is the audit clause? Where did we commit to let Microsoft come to our premises with an audit? Where is the definition of privacy, confidentiality, or definition of a qualified user? So this is what it looks like. So the three key documents, and these are the things that you can find on them. And I don't want to spend so much time on this slide. There's no reason to waste your time on it. Again, you can always come back. We will send PDFs to those who registered for the test. Everyone who's registered, you'll get PDFs of all these slide decks. So as long as I have your email, I know where to send it. Then just a bit of on some of the points. So I don't know, Daryl, if you want to pick up this one, Audit?
yeah, absolutely. So I want to stay high level. One, it's your responsibility to read the agreements. Don't complain to anybody when they come to you for an audit and you say you don't know, I haven't seen it, I've never read the agreement, and a dozen other very, very important clauses. So first of all, it's only your responsibility, not the resellers and not Microsoft's. I think that's most important. The second thing is that your audit, Microsoft has audit rights. And what you need to know is that Microsoft can give you a 30-day notice and then come audit you. So this is very difficult to negotiate. You really need to be a very, very large enterprise to negotiate these terms. It will never go away. It can be modified. What you need to keep in mind that if you do have an audit, there are multiple ways to offset the period of 30 days. I'll be happy to elaborate offline. This is not something I want to speak online, but there are multiple strategies and techniques to basically receive more than 30 days in order to, let's call it, prepare for the audit.
Yeah.
In any case, if you found to be under license, the penalties are very high. Okay, I'm not going to get into the calculations and how they're calculated and how you can fight this, but they're going to be very, very high and very painful. The good news is Microsoft isn't auditing as much as they used to in the past. So I think that's good news. I would say the bad news is they haven't been auditing now for 3-4 years intensively, that it goes in cycles. So I can only assume that coming 2022 or maybe 2023, I think we're going to see audits come back. We're seeing it now with Oracle. We're seeing it now with Adobe. So don't be too... you can be positive about it, but don't be placid. Be aware of it and read your audit clause. Please do.
I'll take the next one, applicable rights, because it's quite
Please.
geeky. So please bear with me. So there's a whole section in the enterprise agreement itself talks about applicable rights, what rights apply to your licenses, and it's important because sometimes Microsoft, okay, not sometimes, Microsoft changed the rules of the game all the time. They release a new version, they change the rules of the game. They release a new version of product terms, they change the rules of the game, the product terms slightly. Sometimes it seems like a very small change. It could be drastic. So you need to understand, in your enterprise agreement, what rights apply to you, what are the conditions that you must follow. So when it's Azure, when you consume Azure services, those terms and conditions are always current. Azure current conditions. They updated it, they apply to you. They updated it tomorrow, they apply to you. With software and rights through SA, it's a bit more interesting. So product terms apply for the version that you bought in the first enrollment term when the product was licensed. So if you have multiple enrollment terms and you're not upgrading it, I have a graphical slide. I'll show you that. You're not upgrading it. Still, those terms still apply to your perpetual licenses. When Microsoft and on this what I have here in Asterix, renewal of SA does not affect the terms of perpetual licenses. This is a new addition. Microsoft used to teach that when you renew SA, your rights reset. I used to teach that as well because Microsoft used to teach it, and so this formula is new. This formula is new, and I remember when there were discussions when Yeli Coy had a whole discussion with Microsoft about he was insisting that even when the old language, this was this way, but finally Microsoft fortunately clarified this. So if you don't upgrade, your old rights still apply to you. You don't have to accept any new restrictive. Microsoft keeps restricting some of the rights. Unfortunately, they reduce your rights from version to version. So with services, easy. Product terms just apply from the beginning of the enrollment term for the 3 years. Same. If Microsoft changes anything and you don't like it, it doesn't apply to you. You may opt, actually, if you like it, you may opt to accept new terms. But anyway, so with rights through SA, it's unclear. I have a picture here to demonstrate it for those of you who are licensing geeks. So see what at the renewals, the orange things here. So this is just one instance of SQL Server 2012. I'm not upgrading it. It's one instance. So when I sign a new renewal of the agreement, there's no effect on the perpetual terms. But according to the language of EA, I am not sure right now, and I appreciate this as a training, but I have to be absolutely open with you. I am not sure if software assurance terms are reset to 2014 at this point, according to the language of Microsoft. I would carefully, because you always should assume the worst, I would carefully think that the rights that you get through software assurance are actually reset to 2014, but that's not clear. Same in 2018, I resigned it again. My perpetual rights that came with the SQL 2012 still apply from the license, including, okay, good example, including core factor table, which then was removed. It would still apply to it. But anything that I get through SA is reset to the rights of the 2017. That's what I think. Yeah, well, I know it's too much detail, Daryl, I know, but I said it's a very geeky slide. So this is all written again in those documents. Mergers, acquisitions are also stipulated. So if the number of licenses changes by more than 10%, that's the whole formula. Microsoft will work with enrolled affiliates to determine how to accommodate these changed circumstances. That's it. Don't overthink it. You acquired someone, you divested something, your base of licenses, kind of number of licenses has changed as a result of that by 10%, more than 10%. Both for you and for Microsoft, it's an option to renegotiate. Right, license transfers. Transfers are only, you can only transfer licenses due to a merger or divestiture. You divest a part of your business. And you can only transfer fully paid perpetual licenses, not partially paid, just fully paid licenses. Software assurance is not transferred. And the biggest point here is, I keep reminding you, that transfers are never, ever, ever, ever reflected on the Microsoft licensing statement. You have to remember what you received or what you gave. It will never be reflected in the Microsoft databases. You have to follow a process. You have to fill in a form. It still gets through Microsoft. They don't reflect it in their databases, so you must keep track of that. So yeah, we had a question from Olivia before about can we transfer the license that we purchased as a mistake? Yes, but you can actually, if you are in the European Union, you can resell them. Moving on, we have 15 minutes left. And I'd like us to be on time today. So LSP relationship in an enterprise agreement, one enrollment, one LSP. Change of LSP is painful. I've seen attempts to change an LSP. I don't want to get, you don't want to get into that area. Choose your LSP wisely, because you are in a it's not a marriage, but it's a temporary lock. So affiliate options are very important. So you get them in an enterprise enrollment. I'll show you the picture where what it looks like. It's like this. So you have to choose wisely here what you want to choose, and then the option. So the last bit on this screenshot, whether to include affiliates that you will then acquire, newly formed or acquired affiliates in the enterprise agreement. I would say choose don't. Because what if you acquire something, and then what happens is then suddenly you need to buy them new licenses. It's a big mistake. Choose wisely what you choose here. I always tell everybody my preferred option is to choose a white list, an exact list. If you need to add them later, reach out to Microsoft, discuss it, modify the EA, add them later, but do this manually. Do not allow automatic updates here. Right. So remember I told you about in the beginning I had a trick question about Office Professional Plus that was bought when there was an agreement. So So a very easy recipe to waste money is to misunderstand the commitment. Only purchase through the enrollment. If you have an enterprise enrollment with Office Professional Plus, all the orders must be done through that enrollment. If you buy Office Professional Plus in MPSA or open, you may not use these licenses. It was that my tricky question in the beginning. You may not use them. Same with the service. I cried once when I saw a government organization wasted £250,000 on Windows Server licenses when they had at the same time a Server and Cloud Enrollment. They could not use those licenses because through the Server Cloud Enrollment, they promised Microsoft that they're only going to buy CIS licenses through that enrollment. They still have to buy them. They just wasted $250,000, and unfortunately, they also missed the return frame. So that was very painful thing. Ivan, I'll let Daryl pick your question because I don't really understand what you mean by gap in SQL Server Developer Edition. It was a subscription always.
But let's come back to that at the end, Alex. Let's move on.
Yeah, and now it's free, so I'm not really sure. If you could elaborate on that before we come back to it, I would really appreciate it. So, question for you: for how long an enrollment can be extended? It's either 3 years, 3 and 1 year, or 1 year. Sorry, or extension not possible. Okay, because of the lack of time, so I'll tell you the answer. It's only one option right now. A. Why I put B is many people say it's either 3 or 1. That was before. For about 3 or 5 last years, you can only have a 3-year extension. That's it. So the next question is, if you have, at the end of an enterprise agreement, you have 12,000 qualified devices. You want to buy out licenses for 3,000 because you're migrating the rest to Microsoft 365. Can you do that? Can you buy out a quota of qualified device licenses? It's either D or E. Enrollment can be extended for 3 years. It's just we don't recommend it to extend it, but there's an option. In the end, instead of renewal, you can extend it. That's what just Daryl was talking about, that don't extend because it's not a good idea. Right, so here, D or E, can you buy out just a part of qualified device licenses or not? It was on one of the slides. I appreciate we skimmed through them quickly, but it was on one of the slides. All right, so the answer here is no. If you buy out platform licenses, enterprise licenses, enterprise products, you must buy them out entirely. All enterprise products must be bought out. Right, so Microsoft Customer Agreement or CSP. And if you've been to our CSP session recently, so this is a bit of, you'll have a bit of a flashback. So Cloud Solution Provider Program, now we're promised that it's going to replace everything, including an enterprise agreement. Right now, it's only targeted at small organizations, but even big organizations sign CSPs. It's a good augmentation to the EA in some circumstances, and it's very, very different. So it's not really an agreement. The agreement that you sign is an agreement with your cloud provider, and they pass on the terms of the MCA to you. So it's not an agreement you sign with Microsoft. You may have multiple providers on one tenant. You may have multiple CSPs on one tenant. It's a framework. MCA is published. You can download it. You can read it. So EA is an actual agreement via an LSP, a signed LSP that you cannot change. MCA is the exact opposite. It's not an agreement. It's a framework. And you can have multiple agreements with multiple CSPs at the same time. All the licenses will come to your one tenant, your license pool. So EA is the term agreement. Enrollments, the term enrollments. MCA, the Microsoft relationship, the Microsoft Cloud Customer Agreement is evergreen. But your agreements with your CSP providers, may be different. They may be expiring. They may be evergreen. It depends on you. So there's no term There's no set term on the CSP. In EA, you have all these annual payments and true ups, spreading of payments, complex subscription rules. So in CSP, it's all very simple. If it's a monthly subscription per user, you pay monthly. If it's an annual subscription, you pay annual. If it's a perpetual license, you buy it upfront. No magic, no smoke and mirrors, and obviously no benefits of a true up. If you consider that the benefit, I do. In EA, there are commitments, as we've just learned. There are minimum barriers. In CSP, no commitments, no entry barriers. Can have an agreement with one license only. Moving on. So in EA, there are predefined discount levels, A, B, C, D. In CSP, right now, yet, there are no predefined discount levels. We are promised in the next year, there was a date of March, now it's removed. Now they only say next year, there will be discount levels up to 3,400. So for the so-called breadth, small businesses, there'll be discount levels. We'll see. So your prices are set. So in the EA, prices are more or less similar. You can benchmark. LSPs usually maintain very, very low margins on top of Microsoft. Their incoming price list. What happens in CSP right now is Wild Wild West. So check your CSP prices. My colleagues from a competing company, they saw CSP providers making like 40% margins on top of their inbound price from Microsoft. Crazy stuff. So come to professionals. Let us check that for you. Benchmark those prices for you. Anyway, and you can have multiple CSPs, as I said. In EA, you have price fix on the initial order. You don't have any price fixes on CSP. Price is always current. Another difference. So, and this one is massive. This is a tectonic shift in Microsoft licensing. So please pay attention. So in EA, you could, as I said, you could either buy, and you cannot buy without SA, perpetual license with SA. That's your first option. Second option, you can buy a subscription license that includes software assurance rights, almost like full equivalent of SA. It's even called license plus SA, subscription license. In CSP, you get either perpetual licenses to which you may not, under any circumstances, add any SA, so they're fixed in time, no SA benefits, perpetual licenses, or you can have a subscription, and that's it. These are the only options. So there's no software assurance, there are no software assurance benefits, but what you get is equivalent benefits in subscriptions only, equivalent. They are not equal. The equivalent, sort of, not equal to the benefits you get through software assurance. So make sure when you switch or add licenses, you check on the product terms website the terms for that product for CSP, which is on the Microsoft Terms website called, by the way, Microsoft Customer Agreement, MCA. There's no CSP option. It's just called Microsoft Customer Agreement. Check that. Windows 10, different. Office 365, different in CSP. Certain tweaks are different. And as I said, yes, you get those software assurance benefits. I actually had a slide for it. So next one, non-licensing software assurance benefits. So in an enterprise agreement or any other agreement, Microsoft also with software assurance give benefits like they used to give training vouchers. They gone now. We only have deployment vouchers, but there are other benefits. They don't exist in CSP because there's no software assurance. Therefore, no software assurance benefits. They may be reintroduced later, but who knows? Right now, they don't exist. Where do you check your licenses? Again, I'm comparing to EA because EA is the most popular one. In EA and many other Microsoft agreements, you see your licenses, where you need to log in to see your licenses, how Microsoft sees them, is VLSC, Volume License Service Center. All the CSP licenses will be in your Office 365 admin center, in your admin console. Not in VLSC. Don't look for CSP licenses in VLSC. Audit terms are exactly similar to MPSA, to Enterprise Agreement, and other agreements that are similar to MPSA. So Microsoft actually harmonized audit terms. So I'm not going to stop on this. Daryl had a very good introduction into audits. Different product terms. Check them. So for example, no server deployments under Microsoft 365. You don't have local deployment rights, dual run rights. They don't exist. You cannot virtualize Windows 10 on premises in a server VDI infrastructure. There's no such right either. So you can do that through an enterprise agreement on the same license. You cannot do that in a CSP. So a question for you. Can you have multiple cloud solution providers supply licenses to your one tenant? One tenant, multiple providers, yes or no? And I'll answer Carl's question because it was relevant to the last statement. So isn't the business part the website? Well, first it's called Microsoft Business Center. And that is where you track MPSA licenses. And I'll quickly cover MPSA in 1 or 2 slides just after this. So here, can you have multiple cloud solution providers supply license to your tenant? Yes, you can. One tenant, multiple providers. Yes, you can. That's the answer. MPSA, Microsoft Products and Services Agreement, which was introduced about 2012, and Microsoft said it's going to replace everything. It's going to replace Select Plus. It's going to replace Enterprise Agreement. It didn't happen. What's going on right now is it's been quietly wiped out. All the PDFs have disappeared from Microsoft website. The Get Licensing Ready page dedicated to and test dedicated to MPSA is very short, just a few things there. So they're still being signed, but we see a tendency to basically try and quietly completely remove the whole MPSA thing. The problem with that is MPSA is an evergreen agreement. It's a transactional evergreen agreement. It's not non-commitment agreement, which was designed actually to simplify licensing after EA, and then it didn't win. EA won the battle. You could have multiple purchasing accounts. You can have multiple LSPs, even on one purchasing account. Very flexible. Very flexible. Various types of purchasing accounts you can mix and match. You can have one for government entity, the other one for academic, the other one for commercial. That's perfectly allowed. One purchasing account is always the administrator that sees everything, monitors everything, and then you can have multiple kind of like subsidiary accounts under that account. No other payment spreads, payment benefits of an enterprise agreement. It's a transactional agreement, which is pretty simple. So for licenses with a software assurance, there's a very complicated formula. Where you can find it, I specifically didn't want to. It is too complicated. I didn't want to waste a slide on that. I might do it one day in a separate video. You can find it on the Get Licensing Ready website. So go to that MPSA section. That's the only PDF they have on MPSA where they explain how software assurance is calculated and paid. It's rocket science. I promise you. It's more complicated than EA. Yeah. So this is part of that. So let's skip through that. No commitment. The minimums are calculated based on points per pool, very much like Select Plus. 3 pools, application system service, minimum 500 points per pool you need per year to be able to buy. If you can't accumulate them, your orders will not be put through. You have to accumulate 500 points on the pool. And these are the price level minimums according, in comparison to points. Where can you look up points? In product terms. Points are in product terms. Also, level can be the level of discount can apply from an alternative agreement that you already have with a better discount level. Same as with Server and Cloud Enrollment. So if you have a better discount, it can be brought in to the MPSA. No price fix. No price fix. Absolutely. And big difference with EA is that you may buy perpetual licenses without software assurance. And that is why most of my customers, our customers, they use MPSA to augment the EA. Most of them use it for transactions for perpetual licenses without software assurance. For example, Windows Server. Windows Server almost doesn't benefit from SA. So where the licenses are, and this was the Carl's question, the licenses, the MPSA licenses, you can find them in Microsoft Business Center. It's a separate portal. It's another portal for Microsoft, so it's complicated. Right, so let's skip through the question very quickly. Open value, one or two slides. So open value is almost like an equivalency of an enterprise agreement, but for smaller customers, because the entry level is 5 licenses. but there are differences, and there's actually a whole bunch of open value agreements, non-organization wide, which is transactional, organization wide or subscription. Subscription is also organization wide, where you have the same qualified devices thing as with enterprise agreement. No qualified users, just qualified devices. Very similar product base, so Office, Windows, Cal bundles. There's price protection in all of them, even in the transactional one, on the initial order. There's a term, there's payment spread on all of them. So minimal order is, I said 5 licenses, but on the org-wide agreements, it's the qualified devices. That's the minimal order. Software assurance is compulsory, like I say. As I said, it's almost like equivalency of the software of the enterprise agreement. And discount level are one level. There's an additional platform discount on the platform bundle. That's it. And again, one level discount. No A, B, C, D discounts available anyhow. Licenses are in volume licensing service center. So when you add licenses, this is an important difference in comparison with the enterprise agreement. Remember, I told you that you pay 6 months of software assurance backwards. If you buy a license anytime mid-year, here you pay for the entire year. Software assurance for the entire year, not 6 months, 12 months. If you add, first payment is always at the time of installation. No true-ups, no delays. So always when you add anything, subscriptions, licenses, when you add anything, you pay immediately straight away. There are geographic regions in open license and open value. Please pay attention to that. If enterprise agreement, you buy a license that is assigned to Israel, you can use it in the States. It's absolutely fine. Country of use Israel, use it in the States, no limitations. In open, they're almost like DVD regions. And for instance, India is a separate territory. So licenses that are bought through open in India may not be used anywhere else. Russia is a separate territory. And then you have Americas, you have EMEA, and all kinds of, and then not really EMEA, it's EU, EFTA, and then Africa is a separate region. So I couldn't find them today. It's a very rare document, but please just remember, open licenses, where you bought them, that's where you use them. So the last question for today: can an organization with 5,000 qualified devices sign an open value organization-wide agreement? The answer A is yes, there is no upper limit, and the answer B, no, the limit is 500 devices. They need enterprise agreement. I said that there was a very good addition, by the way, from Chris about different CSPs on different tenants. I said tenant, so but you're absolutely right that on one subscription, as far as I remember, you can actually flip subscriptions. Maybe this is something I'm not sure about. So yes, so subscriptions may have these limitations, but not tenants. So you can have multiple CSP providers on one tenant, not subscription, tenant. Right. This is the best answer here. A, there's no upper limit, but Microsoft will try to push on the A. And on this fantastic note, we conclude today's training. So please come on the 1st September for the cloud session. Thank you for being here with us today. It was, as usual, was pretty interactive. I hope you like it. As I many times encouraged you already, so ask your questions, talk to each other, help each other, make suggestions. So I really would appreciate if by the end of this live, you would leave us a comment, press like, send us a comment on LinkedIn. You can find us on LinkedIn very easily. All the links, by the way, are in the description of this video. So as I said, all the necessary links are here. And that's it. So see you next time. And we can pick up a few of your questions if you want. Daryl, do you have any questions that you would like to pick up yourself?
No, I think that it was very comprehensive. If anybody wants to complement this session on the agreements with the negotiation side, I think that's what is the next step for the participants. Check out the YouTube channel. There's a full session that Alex and I did a few weeks ago on enterprise agreement negotiation. So once you know the basics on the enterprise agreement, the next step is to understand how to negotiate one. So just check it out, and I think that will be of great assistance.
And by the way, if you're first time on this channel, so we have more than 150 videos now. Well, not more, almost 150 videos now on various topics of Microsoft, including SPLA. If you came here for SPLA today, we're going to have a separate session on SPLA, but there are already videos about SPLA. There are previous live streams like this recorded. We keep all the recordings here. This recording will stay. And if you want to share it with your friend, please, by all means, please share it with your friend. Let them watch it. We have a question. Can the customer buy CSP license in India and use it in Azure to take advantage of AHUB pricing? Why do you mention India? I think it should be, unless India has its own form of the MCA. But as far as I am concerned, MCA is worldwide, because there's only one document that you can download for Microsoft. There's just one MCA. So I'm not sure. I can't answer that. Should be able. I will give it 99% yes. There's a small typo on the description in regards to LinkedIn link. Yeah, I'll check it. Thank you. I'll check it. If I have entitlements for... Oh, that's, by the way, that's a shame that there's a link that's not working. I'll check all the links today. If I have entitlements for any of the education agreements, I can see it in the Office 365 portal. No. You can only see... well, it depends. Yeah, let's park this question. Let's park this question. It'll take a lot of time to answer it. Thank you, everybody, for joining today. Come again, 1st of September. And by the way, come again next week, because that's going to be Daryl's session. Same time, same day, Wednesday, 2 p.m. London. So it's about, what's it, 7:30 Delhi and 9 a.m. New York. So please come. We're going to have talk about remote negotiation strategies, how to negotiate when you cannot meet your other party face-to-face, phone, video, Zoom, all that jazz. So please come next Wednesday. It's on this channel, or if you prefer to also attend on LinkedIn, obviously you can find that event on LinkedIn on our page. Thanks very much. I'll leave this here for a few more minutes, seconds maybe. Follow us and connect to us. And see you next week. See you in 2 weeks on the next training session, which will be about cloud licensing. So bring your cloud licensing friends, please, and cloud architects as well. Let them learn that, so they don't pay too much. Right. Thank again.
Thank you very much, everybody. It was a pleasure. Looking forward to seeing you next week on my session. And then in 2 weeks' time with Alex again. So thank you.
Goodbye, and safe with knowledge of licensing.
Bye, everybody.
I love that one. I love it.